Welcome to TrulyFit.
Becca, thank you so much for joining the TrulyFit podcast for, I believe, the fourth time. Today, we're going to be talking about some of Gary Brecka's principles. I did a whole podcast on it on Thursday, going over his kind of 4 pillars and principles and trying to decide now, after I explain those things, if any of those are just pure nonsense or if there's a lot of science behind it. So we brought you on to break that down, but give my audience who hasn't listened to you before a little background on who you are and sort of your credentials and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me back. So I am a board certified state licensed dietitian and I have my own private practice.
Cool. So I'm going to rework all of his 4 principles for those who haven't listened to the episode. I would say stop now, go back and listen to that 9-minute episode, and then turn this episode back on. But if you decide not to do that, I will give you a brief overview. He's got 4 pillars, so to speak, two of which we're not going to touch on today, 2 of which are breath work and the different types of UV light. I'm going to have specific people on who are experts in that. I have a breathwork expert coming on in a few weeks. And then I have somebody who also deals with like this UV lights and cells equipment who's going to come on to talk about those particular things. So we're going to be talking about the other pillars today, which are his methylation panels, why they're important to sort of parse out deficiencies, I would say, in your body and what sort of diet or supplements that you can take to ensure those deficiencies are no longer existent to make your body run optimally. And then the second would be grounding, which for some people is very hippy dippy. Like what grounding is also known as earthing. It means putting your body, your feet, your hands, whatever, your bare skin on the earth for a certain amount of time. Apparently his claim is that it changes the pH, which is potential hydrogen levels of your blood, and that makes you healthier. So we're going to go over both of those concepts today. First, let's start with the latter, grounding. What studies are there about grounding? What do you know about grounding? Do you, in particular, partake in this?
For sure. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head where just even the word, right? Grounding and earthing sounds kind of woo-woo and hippie. And so I think a lot of people write it off, but there's actually been tremendous research, especially in the more recent years, about the positive health benefits. So initially it was started being looked at maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and it was mainly to regulate our circadian rhythms. So they found that if you are jet lagged, right? If you fly from here to London and you wake up and, you're all thrown off, grounding, putting your feet on the grass in the sand is going to help regulate your biological clock, your circadian rhythm, help you go to sleep earlier that night. And so, I think that wasn't very interesting to most people because how often are we jet lagged, right? A couple times a year, but it wasn't that significant. But more recently, they've done studies showing that it can reduce pain and inflammation. It can reduce the risk of autoimmune conditions. It can support wound healing by increasing blood flow. It can balance your hormones. So just, really a plethora of health benefits. But, I want to, for those people who are very science-minded, I want to take it back and just sort of walk through it. So if you remember from high school biology, a lot of our organs actually utilize electrical currents to function, right? So our heart, our brain, our muscles. That's why if you get an EKG of the heart or an EEG of the brain, that's how those tests work because they're actually measuring electrical activity. So that's not woo-woo. That's hard science, right? That like our bodies utilize electricity to function. And then also the Earth's surface has a natural electric charge. And that's also not woo-woo, right? Talk to a geologist, talk to a physicist, that's confirmed. And so the idea behind grounding is that by touching the Earth's surface, right, with our hands, with our feet, with another part of our bodies, that we're able to absorb those electrons. And that's going to help balance our bioelectrical environments inside our bodies. And so, if you think about the term antioxidant, right, which we've all heard of, the idea behind antioxidants is antioxidants are compounds that are going to be able to donate electrons to free radicals, and they're going to be able to neutralize free radicals. And so if we think about the Earth in the same way, if the Earth is giving off electrons and we're able to absorb that, then technically it's acting as an antioxidant to the body. And, the studies that they've done, it's not, it's not random studies. It's peer-reviewed journals where they're actually looking at levels of cytokines, levels of white blood cells like neutrophils and lymphocytes, and they actually see these levels go down, and they're able to, calculate in a real way the way that inflammatory markers are being reduced after grounding.
I don't know if you remember, but there was a cartoon we both used to watch when we were little called David the Gnome.
Yeah.
And it was all centered around basically like somebody had an illness, and he would go out into the woods and find some sort of medicine and bring it back. And it's like, it all comes full circle. It really, this is all the medicine we need is in the earth, is out there. And I'm not trying to be hippie, but there is a lot of things where we don't need the pharmacological answer. There are more simple answers. Also from like an anecdotal perspective, it's really funny, complete bro science. But I remember going to the beach every year with my friends for 1 week, and I would not be treating my body well. I would be drinking alcohol like a fish, and I would never be hungover, and I would feel great. I was never wearing shoes. My feet were always grounded. I was always in the sand. I was always in the ocean getting magnesium. It's like all of these things obviously play a part in our overall health and wellness. I think what really kind of irks people though is just certain phrases that we can't get over. So when people start to say like alkalinity, right? Like, oh, things are alkaline. There was that big push with a bunch of books saying like, oh, if you drink alkaline water, then your body's going to be more alkaline, right? So then you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but there was apparently studies that say like that's complete nonsense because of how quickly your body's able to digest the water and just change it back into its normal pH. That doesn't mean your blood can't be changed in the alkalinity as opposed to, drinking the water and changing your body's alkalinity.
For sure. Yeah. So I want to touch on both points you made. One, you said going to the beach and being in the ocean. It's like, if we think about it from an evolutionary perspective, we spent hundreds of thousands of years walking barefoot, sleeping on the ground, right? Like actually interacting with the earth, maybe not wearing clothes or not wearing as many clothes as we do now. So it would make sense that we have evolved and adapted in this way where we need the earth to sort of, help us balance. And yeah, I think it's just such an interesting concept. And I know that you're right. People hear a certain term and they think it's snake oil. And as far as the water goes, yeah, listen, your body has profound capabilities to come back to center, right? Like pH 7 is where we need to be. However, there are certain things that can help, right? So like grounding is going to help balance us. Eating the right foods is going to help balance us. And that's because everything has a charge. And so this, again, isn't woo-woo. This is physics, right? We're all made up of atoms and electrons. And so everything has a charge. And you mentioned pH. pH is potential of hydrogen. Hydrogen is protons, right? They're positively charged. And so when you're looking at pH, it's really just assessing the charge of something. And so it would make sense that absorbing electrons from the earth or, from our foods or, in different situations could actually help support our pH. Do I think the alkaline water thing was legit? No, people were charging so much money for alkaline water. And, moreover, there was no like FDA approval. There was no quality assurance, third-party vendors doing the testing. So it's like people could have been taking water from their faucet and like marketing it as alkaline water, right? And selling it for $20 a bottle. So I think that's where people have a tough time swallowing it. And I agree.
I will say that deuterium depleted water, there's been some studies on that. It's a really interesting thing. I did a whole podcast on it. Now, again, speaking of snake oil, I did a podcast on it with somebody who sells it, right? So you don't know exactly what their incentives are. And I do think, coming back to this, not to focus on deuterium depleted water here, but coming back to a lot of these things we're talking about here, it's sort of the antithesis of snake oil because there's nothing to be sold. Like,
right.
Go putting your feet on the ground. I'm not charging you for that. Pun intended, electrical charge, pH. But there's no charge financially for that. You can go do that on your own. So like a lot of these things, getting outside, going in the ocean, getting sunlight, nobody's charging for that. They're just giving that information. Sure. So it's not as if like there is an incentive for people to tell you to go do this that is outside of the norm.
100%. Yeah. And that sort of is the argument on the other side, right? Where pharmaceutical companies can't patent trees and leaves and the ocean and the sand, right? All of that stuff is for free. So no one is making money off that. And so that's why money isn't put into that research, right? If they have a drug that they want to sell and they're going to make millions and millions of dollars off it, they put money into the research and can, that's why when you look up grounding or earthing, yes, there's been a lot in the last 10 or 15 years, but not nearly as much as, the latest, like Ozempic, right? The latest diabetes drug where they're going to make a ton of money. And so I think people write it off because they think, well, where are all the peer reviewed journal articles? And, now there's more for grounding, but peer reviewed journal articles are often funded by people with money, right? Studies cost money. They take time. And if no one is benefiting, it's typically not going to be done.
Find me a study, whatever you think is provable, and I will find you a study that goes against your study. I mean, there's a study for another study. It doesn't matter what sort of peer-reviewed level your study is. I mean, we do know, is it replicable? Can we replicate this over and over? That's really what's important for these things. But there has to be some part of us where we take it down to smaller scales and say, like, do I feel better when I do this? I don't need to read 65 different peer review journals to know that I feel better when I spend a little bit more time outside, when I drink a little bit more water, right? These things seem obvious. At some point, common sense needs to take over. I do want to go back again. I missed a little bit on Gary Brecka. I just want to also just one quick thing on why I'm talking about him. I know when things are going to be trending, and he hit the scene because he helped some major celebrities. Steve Aoki, who's a huge DJ, Japanese-American DJ. Dana White, who's the president of the UFC. Stephen A. Smith, who is arguably probably the most famous sports broadcaster. These are three of many people in the celebrity world who he's helped with these principles. So because of that, he's sort of gone viral lately. And I think that these things are just going to be trending. And that's why I want to address it, because inevitably, whether you're in the nutrition world, whether you're in the general population, or whether you're in my world, in the personal training and fitness world, these things are going to come up with clients. They're going to ask you about these questions. And that's why I want to have Rebecca on to sort of explain these things.
Yeah, I think that's important because if you're in the health and wellness field, we should all be doing our best to take a comprehensive approach, right? Like not practicing outside of scope, but recognizing that health isn't 100% about fitness. It's not 100% about diet. It's not 100% about grounding, right? It's a combination of all of this. And so having a general awareness of some of these new things that are coming out, or at least being able to point your clients in the right direction, I think is really important.
So on to the next one of his pillars we're going to be talking about today is methylation panels. I'm somebody who gets comprehensive blood work done, but I've never got a methylation panel done. I thought it was really interesting when he started to talk about this. And one of the genes that he talks about specifically in the methylation panel is the MTHFR gene. Can you describe exactly what the studies have shown concerning that gene and anything that you can pass on that maybe Gary didn't say about what it does and doesn't do?
For sure. So let's go back, let's break it down and go back to what exactly methylation is. So methylation is a process that happens in the body and it plays a significant role in a lot of aspects of our health. So it's important for reproduction. It's important for our neurological functions, for the creation of neurotransmitters. And it's also important for our detoxification systems. So it's ideal that our methylation cycle is functioning optimally. And so one of the issues that can arise when it's not functioning optimally is a compound called homocysteine can become elevated. And so homocysteine is a natural compound in the body, but if it gets too high, it can cause a host of problems, specifically cardiovascular problems. And there's a ton of research linking high homocysteine levels to dementia, to stroke, and to other cardiovascular issues. So we really want to keep homocysteine in check, and we do that by keeping our methylation cycle healthy. Now, in order for our methylation cycle to function, we need something called methyl donors. And so a methyl donor can be folate. It can be B12. There's also some other compounds that are involved in the methylation cycle, like B2 and B6 and biotin and choline, which we can get into later. But all right, so let's talk about the MTHFR gene, methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. So that gene codes for an enzyme, and that enzyme helps supports the methylation cycle and the methylation process. So 30 to 50% of the population has a mutation in the gene that codes for that enzyme, which means they're not going to be able to methylate properly. And so for 50% of the population, right, let's use 50% because it's a clean number. when they take folic acid, it's not going to be able to be converted to methylfolate, which is the active form. And so you need methylfolate to enter into the methylation cycle. And if it doesn't become methylfolate, we can't use it. So for 50% of the population, if you're taking folic acid, it's inactive in the body and it's not doing anything. And so that's the idea behind taking methylated vitamins. So what you want to look for when in your multivitamin or in your active B complex, you want to make sure it says methylfolate or methyl tetrahydrofolate. You don't want to take folic acid. And part of this is because folic acid and folate compete for absorption. So if you are taking folic acid, the folate from your diet, right, the natural folate that you're getting from healthy foods isn't going to be absorbed as well. So we really want to stay away from folic acid. The same thing with B12. So we want to stay away from cyanocobalamin. That's not the active form. And we want to look for methylcobalamin. So you just, you turn over your supplements, you make sure you're reading the label, and you make sure you have those two active forms of those vitamins because they're important in your methylation cycle. So the interesting thing with Gary, and I don't know too much about his background, but from what I've seen, he recommends this methylation panel, which is basically genetic testing. And I appreciate what you said on your podcast on Friday, talking about, you gave a quote from him, right? And he talks about how it's really important to have personalized medicine, personalized nutrition. We need to treat our deficiencies and not just like throw spaghetti at the wall and take a multivitamin. And I totally agree with that. But as far as the methylation panel and whether you should do it or not, one, it's very expensive. I saw on his website it's like $600. So there are places you can do that are cheaper. Like licensed professionals, I have the ability to give out that type of testing too. It's just a saliva test, and mine is less expensive than that. But I think genetics only paint half the story, because if you have that gene mutation, right? And again, you can, because we're talking about genetics here, you can be homozygous, so you can have 2 copies of that mutant gene, or you can have you can be heterozygous and you can have 1 copy of that gene mutation, and that's going to impact how much you're impaired, right? Obviously, if you're homozygous for that gene mutation, you're really going to be reduced, and if you're heterozygous, you still have 1 functioning gene. But I think genes only paint half the picture. And you and I know that in general, right? You can have a gene for Parkinson's and never get it. You can not have a popular gene for, like, let's say for us, for breast cancer, right? We don't have the BRCA gene in our family. Our sister still got breast cancer. So I think when you're only relying on genetics, if you look at your results and say, oh, I don't have the gene mutation for MTHFR, I'm good. But then you're drinking alcohol, you're having too much caffeine, you lead a sedentary lifestyle, you're exposed to environmental toxins, that's still going to impact your methylation cycle. And so I don't want people to look at their genetic results and think, well, now I don't have to make any lifestyle changes. It's not a closed case after you get the genetic results. And similarly, if you do have the genetic mutation, but you're eating well and you're exercising, you're taking the right supplements, you're taking active B complex and other compounds to support your methylation cycle, you could be fine. So what I think is a better option than getting the methylation panel and testing your genes is getting a snapshot of your methylation cycle in real time. And to do that, you can test for your homocysteine. So this is just a blood test. You can ask your general practitioner for it, and it's going to give you, real-time data on what's happening in your methylation cycle, because despite your genes, you still need to know what's going on in your body in real time. And I think that information is more helpful than, just knowing whether you have the gene or not.
It's great information. A lot to take from that. I want to go back to folic acid a little bit here specifically and talk about that. And then we'll work through some of the other things you said that were really important. I think, a lot of times when people make these drastic changes, let's go ahead and say, I get this methylation panel, I get the MTHFR gene, I have it, and I decide to change my diet. The reason they're getting healthier is not just because they're not having folic acid. It's because they're just eating healthier, right? You're making better decisions, because folic acid is basically sprayed in everything that you shouldn't be eating anyway, right? So it's like this white bread that lasts on the shelf for 6 years. It's the cookies and crackers in the center of the aisles in the supermarket, right? So that's all the stuff that has the enriched
Right. Fortified,
flours
enriched. Yeah. All the
that
processed foods.
that
Yeah.
has the folic acid in the first place, right? So like, so talk me through. Is folic acid in any foods that we should be having anyway? Like, can you think of a food
Well,
that folic acid is in
well,
that we
so
should be
here's the
eating?
thing. Folic acid is the man-made version of folate.
Yeah.
So it's essentially, right, it's the same vitamin, but it's just the man-made version and it's not the active version. So folate, methylfolate, methyl tetrahydrofolate are just the active forms of folic acid. And so you want to make sure you're taking the active form just in case, one, you do have the gene mutation, or two, because of our modern lifestyles, your methylation cycle may be sluggish in general. And so having
is cyanocobalamin the same exact thing, where it is not the normal version, it's the man-made version of the B12 we should be getting?
Correct. Yeah. So you want to look for methylcobalamin because that's the active form in your body. And so for cyanocobalamin, some people are able to convert it into the active form. Some people are not. And so why take the chance? Take the active form because your body could use additional methyl donors anyway, because that's only going to, help support our optimal health.
I use a supplement company recently. My wife actually used it while she was pregnant, and now I just continue to use it, called Thorn. And they have really good methylated vitamins of all sorts.
Yeah.
And they just seem to be, from their third-party testing, pretty pure. Is there another brand that you would recommend outside of them? Do you also recommend Thorn?
Yeah, Thorn's an excellent brand. There are a couple other what they call pharmaceutical grade brands or medical grade brands, and we should do a whole podcast on supplements because that would be fun. But Designs for Health is good. Pure Encapsulations is good. Those are probably the two I use the most of.
Okay. But from a macro picture here, if we're going to sum this up, folic acid and folate are not really the same thing. Cyanocobalamin and the methylated version of the B12 are not really the same thing. Yeah, they're the same in a sense, but your body doesn't always use them the same if you have one of these genes. Therefore, why not get the active version just in case?
Correct. Yeah, they're the inactive version, and so your body has to do extra work to make them active. And some people can do that more efficiently than others. And it's not just about the genes, because you can have excellent genes when it comes to methylation, but a crappy lifestyle, and that's going to clog things up and slow things down.
Are there other vitamins that fall into this category?
Yeah.
Are there
So
like C and D vitamins that also are not the active versions that we're taking?
So B vitamins in general, you can look for this. So I think Designs for Health has a supplement called Active B Complex, and that's what you want to look for, because all of the B vitamins really complement each other, and so they can provide cofactors and support the methylation cycle in different ways. So B2 and B6, also choline. So it's great to get a comprehensive active B vitamin, and you can easily find that. Or I think Thorn actually sells a compound called methyl support or methylation support. Yes, that's the name of it. Yeah. And that's what you want to do, because, these things aren't happening in a vacuum, right? So we really need vitamins and minerals that complement one another, especially in this way. But as far as looking for active vitamins, no, mainly what you want to look for is the B12, the methylcobalamin, and the methyl tetrahydrofolate.
And then going back to what you said before, as far as the expense of the labs, yes, it's $600 or $700. I believe if you go through like Gary Brecka's site specifically, I think if you actually just go to the lab, like if you were just go to like get lab work, it's also pretty expensive. Maybe not that expensive, but I will say too, there is a way sometimes where if you have a 23andMe panel, I mentioned this on my Friday podcast,
yeah,
that there's sites like NutraHacker that you can upload a CSV file into it. And that CSV file will then tell you, based upon whatever else, if you have the MTHFR gene. I don't know if it'll do all the genes, but it certainly does that one. But recently, for anyone who does have 23andMe, I went on and they had someone who hacked their site. And it happens from time to time, right? Like when credit cards get taken by these sites or something, right? So they've now blocked that data from being downloaded. And it's for an indefinite amount of time. I don't know how long. Now, you can go see your information, but you can't download all of your gene stuff to a CSV file, at least for an indeterminate amount of time. So hopefully that goes away, because I tried to enter it into NutraHacker, and go on and
And you
see
couldn't.
without having to actually pay for the panel. And unfortunately, I can't get the data right now.
Yeah, if you're able to, you should download it and save it. I know it's a huge document, but for the future in case that happens again.
Well, this has been great information. Thank you for going over both the grounding and the methylation panels and the vitamins. I think it's really good to know that somebody who is espousing this stuff and who's going to be in the media is maybe not a charlatan, because there are a lot of charlatans out there who are just preaching to sell things. And because he sells things for a lot of money, you assume right away, okay, this person may be doing this for money. So it's good to actually just look at the principles, not look at the person, and go, are these principles scientifically backed? So we appreciate your time in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, let's finish here with a project that you and I are both working on. You can let the audience know first, and then I'll chime in afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm launching a program in January. It is my Weight Loss Wonders program. It's a 12-week program, and it's the first time I'm offering something that is going to have a money-back guarantee. That's how confident I am that this is exactly what my clients need to lose weight and get the results they want. I'm partnering with Steve to do the fitness component of it. And I think that's what really sets us apart, right? There's a lot of programs that just offer nutrition or just offer fitness, but they don't have both. And they don't have real-time support and accountability. So in this program, you're going to get a one-on-one private consult with Steve to come up with a personalized exercise regimen. You're going to have one-on-one calls with me to come up with a personalized nutrition action plan. And there's going to be weekly Ask Anything calls for additional support and guidance. There's going to be a grocery shopping checklist and a pantry checklist and all sorts of other bonuses. So this will be launching in next week on Monday. So just, wanted to put a little bit of info out there for anyone who may be interested, but it's a program I'm really, really excited about. And I think, compared to some other things that are out there, it's not just pre-recorded videos, right? Because you can buy the workout videos, you can even buy the Peloton, but I think what's missing is that support and accountability in real time, right? It's one thing to buy the cookbook. It's another thing to have the chef in the kitchen with you. And that's what we're doing in this program. So you can't fall through the cracks. We're going to be meeting every week. And you're not just going to have a plan, you're going to have a team of people supporting you to meet your needs. So super excited about it.
Yeah, not only is the accountability factor really important, but you'd be surprised on how many questions are asked when you're in sort of like, let's say, a group video meeting that you didn't think you needed the answer to, that you end up needing the answer to at some point in your journey, right? Someone might be a little bit ahead of you in their journey, and they ask a question, and that ends up helping you. So you're getting to see all of the different problems that people have, both from a fitness standpoint, because I'm on the calls too for anyone who has fitness-related questions, and from a nutrition-related standpoint and a weight loss standpoint or a health standpoint, and you get to have all these answers. Now, if you can't make the calls, they're also going to be recorded, and they'll be sent to you afterwards, so you can digest that information any way you want if you don't feel like being on the call yourselves. But you're going to hear everyone's issues, and you're going to get all of those answers, and that's going to expedite your journey even more in the weight loss process.
Totally. Yeah. I think the aspect of community can't be overlooked, right? I think the reason people do so well in CrossFit, right, or some of these other like cult-like fitness programs is because they have the community, right? They show up and they get this family, and they meet people who are on the same journey as them. And that's, really what we're trying to do here for people who want it. And like you said, for people who don't want it, just download the recorded call and that's fine. And we're still going to have that one-on-one because, I think you and I, more so than most people, are really passionate about personalizing it, right? It has to be a personalized workout regimen. It has to be personalized nutrition because everyone has different goals, lifestyle preferences, and we don't just want to do a one size fits all. But I think the fact that this is going to have that personalized one-on-one attention and the group calls where, you can touch base weekly and ask anything and learn from what other people are going through, I think that'll be really powerful.
Yeah, and I do want to say I'm sort of a supplement to this program, right? Becca is the main course. I'm an appetizer. I'm there to assist and help in this process. But for anybody who, let's say, maybe you're someone in the general population who has a personal trainer already, I'm not stepping on toes. I'm just going to be there to answer questions. I can audit your current program if you want me to. And if you don't want to use me, that's also fine. And for those who don't have one, then I can be essentially your guide and your trainer for that 12-week duration. We'll meet, we'll have an hour conversation about your goals, your health history, your fitness, and then I have a program. I have an actual workout labs, it's called, program that you're going to sign up for. You're going to go online and you're going to see all the workouts. They're just there for you, and we can connect through there. We can talk back and forth if you have any questions. So it really is as comprehensive as you could imagine. From not only, I also want to be clear, I'm sure Rebecca would second this. Yes, there are things that we're offering, but we don't really have boundaries. It's not like if you reached out to us with a question, we're going to be like, well, you got to wait for the meeting. Like we're always going to be there to answer whatever question you have. So understand that.
For sure. And I think I have so many podcasts I want to do with you, but I think also what sets us apart is fitness and nutrition were career changes for us, right? It's not just like something we started when we were 20 and we're still stuck in the field, right? We like specifically made a pivot. You were like, I don't want to do PR. I want to do fitness. I was like, I don't want to be in pharmaceutical sales. I want to do nutrition. And I think a lot of that is based off, our life experience and our parents and health concerns. And I think the fact that we are so passionate about what we do is what sets us apart from other people. That we really want our clients to meet their health goals. It's like a calling for us, and so I'm super excited about it.
There'll be more information about it, but if you specifically want more information, I will say this is not a salesy thing. This is just a fact. Rebecca and I only have so much time, right? And if we really want to help people, we can't take on everybody, right? This is just not going to be possible. So there will be a limited number of slots, and we need to know by a certain date who's going to sign up for it, or else we're not going to be able to have the proper plans in place. So if you want to know a little bit more information about this, again, this is going to be starting right after January, but we're going to have to start to get people signing up in November and December leading into January. Becca, tell them where they can reach out to you to get more information to sort of start to finalize this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You can DM me on Instagram. My handle is Happy Healthy Nutritionist. My website's the same, and there's a contact form, happyhealthynutritionist.com. Just to, go off what you said, January 8th will be the kickoff date. And I know some people may be thinking it's only November, but my hope for people who may be interested is that they can sign up now and then go into the holidays and have the cookies and have the cocktail and not worry about it, right? Not feel guilty, know that they have a plan come January 8th for 12 weeks. They've committed. They will be able to reach their goals, or they will get their money back. And it's not just, here's a document, follow this. It's real-time accountability, support, and guidance. So I think if you can give yourself the gift and do yourself the favor of signing up now, you can go into the holidays with a clear mind, guilt-free, knowing that you have a plan to get back on track.
So it's Happy Healthy Nutritionist on Instagram. If you forget that for some reason and it's just easier to reach out to me, I will forward that message to Rebecca, at stevewashuta on Instagram. This has been an episode of the TrulyFit podcast. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining in.
Thanks.